Hello you sexy beast and welcome back to War Thunder, and welcome to a kind of a new series and first installment of this series. Welcome to Stock versus ACED. In this series we are going to take a look at the stats of the vehicle when fully stock and when fully upgraded to find out how much performance you actually gain in upgrading your vehicle. And after that we'll just do a full review of the vehicle as well, because why the hell not, right? In this episode we're going to be testing the infamous Griffon-Engined Spitfire F Mk. The Mark 24 is a rank 4 British fighter sitting at a battle rating of 6.3, and as such is one of the highest tiered prop fighters in the game, and will face jets quite regularly actually. The armament consists of 4 wing-mounted 20mm Hispano Mark V cannons with 650 rounds in total and a burst mass of 6.46 kg per second. Alternatively, and by researching the correct modules, you can also take up to 3 500-pound bombs and 8 RP-3 rockets, and as such turn this thing into actually quite a nice ground attacker for combined battles and even going after AI ground targets. The Rolls-Royce Griffon 61 12-cylinder engine has a rated output of 1,360 horsepower and 2,149 when using web. This is the reference model, by the way. In fact, using my stat testing tools, I found that the stock aircraft has about 1,790 horsepower and the ACED aircraft is about 2,290 horsepower maximum, which is about a 27.9% difference, so quite distinguished actually. Now you can find fuel tanks all along the fuselage, as well as on the leading wing edges between the fuselage and the cannons, as well as oil and water cooling systems all over the nose, the fuselage and the wings, which makes this thing actually very prone to leak. This is not the kind of aircraft you can take much damage with and expect to stay in combat for long. The engine is an inline engine type, so as soon as you take any kind of damage to your oil or water cooling system, it's a good idea to go back to base and repair that. The wings feature double spars and are quite big in its area, which, even though this Spitfire is heavier than earlier Spits, thanks to the engine and all the modifications, it still is pretty maneuverable. You're not going to be the best turn fighter out there anymore, as the earlier Spits were, but you're still very, very maneuverable. And in fact, the wings are actually quite sturdy themselves. Now, you can definitely break your wings if you go too fast and do a full turn, but I myself, personally, in the games that I've played in this thing, I've never even broken my wings. Not once. Alright, let's go on to testing methodology for the stats. Using our handy tool and the Kiwi's optimal climb speed chart, which I'm going to leave in the a link to in the description down below. We sped up to 260 km indicated airspeed, started climbing with web holding that speed. The test flight was held with minimal fuel and up to 3 km altitude. After that, and having our stats for the climb rate, we turned around, leveled the aircraft, enabled the web again and held horizontal flight as close to 0 as possible. And after a while, just read the top speed manually. I didn't do any roll rate or turn time tests, on one side because they are much more time consuming and harder to do, and on the second hand because they are kind of useless without having a direct comparison to other aircraft. So instead I'm just going to give you a general indication of what you can and can't outmaneuver. Pretty much any kind of German fighter, unless at very low speeds, although even then you have landing flaps. Especially for Go-490s, you can easily outturn those. P-47s, P-51s in some degrees as well. You're going to have more problems with, of course, the Japanese fighters and the F-8F Bearcat at low altitudes. Alright, let's go on to the stats. Now, as you can see by the chart, for the climb rates, there is quite a pronounced difference between the stock and the ACED Mark 24. Now, even stock, the aircraft climbs really quite well, but ACED, this thing turns into a rocket ship. The average difference, the difference between all the altitudes on average is 36.9%. So even though your stock aircraft is already quite decent, you get a 37% bonus on top of that. That's huge. Now, what about acceleration? Acceleration is always one of those stats that is not really explicit anywhere, that you have to figure out yourself. And it's one of the most important stats actually in any kind of aircraft. Acceleration dictates many things, and it is one of the biggest reasons why an aircraft can be good or bad. So, stock, the thing has a decent acceleration but suffers quite a bit towards the higher speeds. At 3 km altitude in level flight I've only been able to reach a top speed of 510 km per hour, and it was really struggling to get up to that speed. However, ACED, once again this thing turns into an absolute rocket ship. Immediately, even at 350 km per hour, I think is where I started this test, or 300 km per hour, you can see a 30% difference That's huge already. And this only gets exponentially higher at higher speeds, giving us an average of 56.3% acceleration increase. Now, keep in mind that this number is inflated by the difference at 450 km per hour, which is almost 98%, so almost double in the ACED aircraft. But still, the ACED Mark 24 accelerates much better than the stock one. Finally, referring again to the top speeds, as for stock, it's 510 km per hour indicated airspeed at 3 km altitude and 575 km per hour ACED. That's about a 12.7% difference, not too pronounced, but those extra couple of kilometers per hour can help you out. Now keep in mind that these speeds were taken in indicated airspeed at 3 km altitude, not true airspeed, okay? So, stats done, how does this thing fly? Now, amongst the horrible stock grinds that are out there, BF-109K4, I'm looking at you, the Spitfire is actually one of the most enjoyable stock grinds I've ever experienced. Really. Now, stock, it is a little bit slow, and it can't really keep up with many enemy fighters, let alone jets. Jets, you're just never going to catch them. But thanks to its maneuverability, it doesn't really need to. It can very easily evade enemies, and once you get them down to the same NG level, you make short work of them, even when stuck. Now, the guns do have a little bit of a drawback. Of course, they are wing-mounted, which needs a good understanding of gun conversions and how to use that, and staying at ideal ranges. If you go too far, or if you go too close, your guns are going to be very inaccurate. It's going to be very hard to actually take enemies down. Not only that, your stock guns also overheat, not too quickly, but they get very inaccurate very quickly. If you burst for longer than 1 second, your guns get very inaccurate, and it's almost impossible to hit anything past 1 kilometer. Not only that, the default belts are also quite bad, really. You get 2 high explosive rounds, a practice shell and a tracer shell. This belt is a spark fest, and it's going to actually be quite frustrating during your first couple of games where you think you were going to kill something, but you don't, because all your shells just spark. It's fireworks, it's New Year's all over again. And really the worst part is that you don't get the chance to upgrade the belts until tier 3 in the modifications. So you have to grind this thing quite a bit with the stock guns and with the stock belts until you can get yourself some proper ammunition choices. Oh, but once you do. Now, stock these belts, this is really what I have to remember, because the Spitfire Mark 24 doesn't really have many drawbacks. It's top speed and stock belts. Those are really the only drawbacks. And with the stock belts, you're going to have problems going up against tough opposition, like the Focke 190s, P-47s, and Me-262s. It's going to be very hard to take one of those down. Thankfully, you do have a decent ammo count, and you do have a fast fire rate, which can actually work against you, since the guns are so inaccurate and they tend to spark a lot when stock. That ammo count can go away very quickly. The guns do fire quite fast, and you have 4 of them, so keep that in mind. Alright, but what about ACED? How does the ACED Spitfire Mark 24 perform? Well, there is a reason this thing is called the Spacefire, and oh my god, does this thing turn into a rocket ship. The climb rate is incredible. It climbs pretty much anything that doesn't get an air start. Oh, and don't even get me started on the acceleration. You saw how much acceleration you get, almost double towards those higher speeds. The acceleration that this Griffon engine puts on that 5-bladed propeller is insane, and I love it. Now, top speed is still not the best around. It does have a decent top speed towards the high altitudes, but you're still going to be outrun by other fighters. The roll rate is not the best, but it's actually quite good and very usable still. You're not going to have too much issue in following other enemy fighters in a dive or in a turn. And you can actually do this little trick thanks to the absolutely awesome rudder authority. Actually, do try it yourself. When you hit that rudder, it really throws the accurate around. What you can do is actually roll and use the rudder at the same time to pretty much just snap around instantly. It's insane, and it's one of the best ways to actually evade enemy fighters incoming on your aircraft. Now, as I mentioned, top speed is kind of an issue. That being said, however, the thing can actually dive quite well, up to 800 kilometers per hour. And if you do it smartly, you can catch up with other enemy fighters. Even jets, to some degree. So in summary, really, the overall performance of this thing is absolutely amazing. It is very good in every situation and extremely easy to fly. Not to fry, but to fly. And this is kind of where my rant comes in. When I look at pretty much every other high tier prop in the game, they all can excel if you have the discipline to fly them correctly. Stuff like the K4, you have to start high altitude, you have to energy fight the thing, right? But if you don't do that, or if you even do the minimal error, they punish you heavily. And not only that, they are also only really viable when aced, generally suffering from an abysmal stock grind. This thing? This thing shits all over the opposition. There's almost nothing this aircraft can't do, and it makes even a bad pilot look like a good one. The only real disadvantage of the Mark 24 is the slightly lower top speed than its opposition, but it more than makes up for that with its armament, acceleration, climb rate, and overall maneuverability. And sure, are you going to be outturned by certain aircraft? Yeah, but you have so much engine power you can very easily either pull away or energy fight them to death. Are you going to be outsped by most enemy aircraft? Especially against jets in horizontal? Yes, but thanks to its incredible climb rate, it usually is above the enemy and can easily dive on them. And even if you are at the same altitude, if the enemy isn't already at its top speed, this thing is going to out-accelerate almost everything. So, in conclusion, the Spitfire Mark 24 is a very good aircraft. A little bit too good in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love flying this thing myself, it's a blast. It always guarantees a good game. Oh, but I hate facing against it. And in fact, it is so easy to fly that it just makes you a lazy pilot. And I've actually gotten, on average, worse games when I had this thing aced than when I first flew it out stock. When I flew it out stock, I was much more cautious because I didn't know the aircraft. Once I got this thing aced, I was so overconfident in this aircraft that I just did stupid maneuvers that I wouldn't have otherwise done or even dared to dream about in other aircraft. So, should you pick one up? Hell yeah! If you want to feel like an awesome pilot, pick up the 24. If you want to grind the Brit tech tree quickly, put a talisman on the 24. If you want to be the devil incarnate when facing American or Germans in a down tier, pick the 24. There's a reason this thing is called Spacefire. But those are just my experiences. What are yours? Do you hate flying against this thing as much as I do? Do you think it's balanced? Do let me know in the comment section down below. Also, before you go, thank you for sticking around until the end. You're awesome. I have a feeling 2017 is going to be an awesome year for us, and it's already been for the winner of the Christmas giveaway I did. By the way, the winner has already been announced and received his prize. I'll leave the link to the announcement that I did on Twitter a couple of days ago in the description down below if you want to check it out. But he's already received his prize. He chose the Japanese premium heavy tank, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyways, this kind of video takes a lot of work to prepare, really, just because of the stat testing, so I would actually really appreciate it if you could leave it a like and share it with your friends. And hey, if you're new around here, do check out my Blueprints playlist for more videos just like this, and subscribe if more of your time. As always, my name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find